it's off air, it'll go. We are live. This is Katie Hunter for MMA UK, and I'm here with Garry Tonon. Garry, thank you so much for doing this interview.
No problem. Just got finished with training. As you can see, I'm in the middle of eating, trying to get in as many calories as possible. I'm on the no-carb diet right now towards the end of the camp, so I'm dying over here.
So food is something that features quite prominently in your social media.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite funny for me to see like your gas station diet, as you were calling it at some stage. So
yeah.
When is it that you clean up your diet? Is that when you go into actual fight camp before an MMA fight?
Ish. Like, I mean, so fight camp you usually describe as about like an 8-week process. I would say most people would describe fight camp.
Yeah.
And I knew around, I would say about 8 weeks, maybe a little bit more before this fight. When I was fighting, there was like supposed to be a potential change, but then it didn't happen. So, thankfully the opponent stayed the same. But anyway, as far as how far out do I adjust my eating habits, I try to time it so that I don't have to adjust my eating habits for very long. So I would say I adjust my eating habits around 4 weeks out, I would say. Before that, I pretty much eat whatever I want and, do my same normal thing. The eating habit adjustment is mostly just to make sure that I make weight. It's not, I don't really feel like I feel better at this weight or better because I'm eating healthier food or anything. I mean, I feel lighter. I'm definitely lighter. I know that. But I don't feel like less tired necessarily. I guess like getting up and down, I'm hip heisting and things, like I can feel a difference just because I'm lighter. But other than that, like, I don't know. I think a lot of people, like, it's like a placebo effect. They like, oh man, I've been eating really clean. I feel great. I'm in great shape. Like, I don't know. I don't really notice the difference that much, to be honest.
And you obviously fight for 1 championships. You're 3-0 with them, about to have your 4th fight, and they've obviously got a different weigh-in system to most of the other.
Super complicated.
So
super complicated. But everybody gets confused because in addition to the fact that they changed the weigh-in system, they also changed the name of all the weight classes. Yeah. So when people see that I'm fighting featherweight, they assume I'm fighting 145. Yeah. But the truth is, it's actually for them, it's 155. Mm-hmm. And when I was fighting lightweight, they thought I was fighting 155, but it was really 170. Yeah. It's very, they make it very confusing. In addition to that, I just don't know how. Oh, hello. Can you see me? Okay. Yeah. You got me? Because it looks like it's going in and out. On my end, is it clear? Because on your end, it just goes in and out.
Okay. No, we're good.
Okay, good. I was just going to say, that I feel like they don't do a great job necessarily telling everybody exactly what goes down and how it works. But the general gist is that in addition to making weight, you also have to make a hydration test. And you have to do that 2 times to be extra sure that, like, you're really – because it would be really hard to make the hydration test 2 times and your weight. Because you start 2 days beforehand, then 1 day beforehand. It would be very difficult to do that if you were very far away from the weight. Like some of the UFC weight cuts that I know some people do, it's like plus 30 pounds, like somewhere around 30 pounds or more. Some of these guys are cutting, like guys fight 155 and, are fighting, they weigh like 200 pounds, which is insane. They're making weight cuts like that. So that's really not possible for this organization. You can cut a little bit of weight. Which I'm obviously doing now, mostly diet, exercise. I'm getting my weight down very low before I do any like actual like water cutting or anything. But you can only do so much because you have to pass a urine test for hydration. So it's tricky, but I would say that I go into fight week at around 162 pounds or so, like the actual week of the fight, and I cut from around there. So it's really not that big of a cut, 7 pounds maybe. I don't know how much. I don't know if there's anybody cutting more than that. Maybe I wish I knew how, but it seems very difficult to cut more than about 7 pounds from fight week.
It seems like a lot healthier way to do it, and it feels like you would have an advantage coming from a jiu-jitsu background and obviously being used to same day weigh-ins where you don't cut masses of weight.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fighting guys that are bigger than me for a long time in jiu-jitsu. It matters a little less because you're not getting hit.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me so much when somebody's heavier than me as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned. You know, when I fought my second fight against Rahul Raju, though, that dude was huge. And I was just like, man, I'm definitely in the wrong weight class. He hit hard, and it's not so much the hard hitting. It's just you can just see the difference in size. And I just didn't think it made any sense. I thought I was clearly a 155er.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm used to it. I'm used to the whole weigh-in process being, you know, not doing a lot of day before weigh-ins. There was a few matches I've had. The lowest I've ever gotten day before weigh-in was 150 to fight Masaku Imanari in jiu-jitsu. And I felt fine for that. So I'm pretty confident that if I was in any other organization that did weigh-ins a different way, I'd probably be fighting 145.
Yeah.
That's my guess. I think making 145 for this organization would be very difficult. I wouldn't put it out of reach. I think it's possible. I just think I'd be really miserable. So it's not something I'm interested in doing every fight. It's like if I won the title at 55 and 7, maybe I'd go down to 45. Like if it seemed like a goal that I wanted to reach one time, like I wouldn't want to do it multiple times.
Yeah. So is that something that interests you then, not just dominating your own weight class, but really taking over multiple divisions?
Absolutely. I mean, let's not get ahead of myself. I still have to win. I have to win my weight class first. But yeah, I mean, I want to try to take you know, my competitive nature in one championship as far as it'll go. You know, whether that means winning 1 title, 2 titles, 3, whatever I can do, I'd like to be able to do in that organization. I want to make the most out of it. So yeah, absolutely. I see myself winning the 55-pound title, not too much longer. Like it really depends on when they decide that I'm ready.
Yeah.
I don't really see them waiting much longer than 6 or 7 fights. That's just my thought. Nobody's said anything to me, but I will say this. They posted something today, actually, I think, that said like, oh, when will Garry get his shot at the title? So, I mean, clearly somebody over there is thinking about it, because if their PR team posted that, I would imagine that's what they're thinking. So, but yeah, man, if I can do multiple titles, that would be great. But, you know, I got to focus on one thing at a time. I got to win these fights first. It's funny, like a lot of people ask me about how I like MMA and if I like MMA and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I won all 3 of my fights. So MMA is going great so far, right? Yeah. But like, I mean, I haven't gotten like KO'd viciously in front of my friends and family and like embarrassed and on national television yet. So, I mean, let's find out if I really like MMA. Like, that's how you really know, right? Like, I don't know. Unless I continue to stay undefeated forever. I mean, my perspective is only coming from a winning background. So it's like, it's hard to say.
So let's talk about your background, because obviously you were used to winning way before you came into the MMA space.
Sure.
Squad, although I've heard that Montana is not particularly happy about that name. Is that true?
Sorry, say that one more time. It was cut off a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I said you're part of the Danaher Death Squad, but apparently he doesn't approve of the name, the nickname that everybody gives you guys. Is that true?
Who doesn't approve of it, John? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I think John, I don't think he's like mad about it, but I think for him, he probably thinks it's cool or doesn't really isn't bothered by it. But I think he realizes that like the Danaher name is also attached to the rest of his family, and having a name like Danaher Death School, like, you know, when the rest, if anybody types in the word Danaher, that kind of pops up now. And like, you know, I don't know how comfortable he is with that being associated with the rest of his family, but it kind of, I mean, it's too late now. It's not a whole lot he can do about it now. So I don't really think, I don't think he's too worried about it. But I think initially he was like, oh man, you know, my little cousin or whatever was, you know, saying, oh, you're in the Death Squad. You know, I don't know. It made him a little uncomfortable at first, I think. But it was just kind of an organic thing that happened, and everybody likes the name. So It's
Oh,
fun.
it's super cool. Yeah.
I think it suits John whether he projects that he likes the name or not. Trust me.
And obviously, you guys are most famous for like revolutionising the leg lock game, which like, notoriously had quite low percentage chance of getting the submissions back in the day. But you guys have totally made that a massive, massive part of the sport and of MMA.
Sure.
But you, I think, are better known for your back attacks. So what's your favourite submission?
Yeah, I mean, since I started training under John, I've really been expanding my ability to submit people, and I have so many more options than I used to. When I would say the first 6 years of my training, I really only knew how to take people's backs and strangle them from there. And it's still my favorite way if I had to pick, because it's the ultimate form of control. You're behind somebody, they can't really do a whole lot about it. Once you get there, it's usually like pretty controlling. It's pretty easy. You're not going to get hit in MMA. So, I mean, if I had to pick one place to be to submit somebody, it's going to be on their back with a rear naked for sure. But I will say that lately I've been favoring a lot of different like guillotine and head and arm style attacks. One thing I'll say about those is that in general, when you start competition, whether you're fighting, whether you're grappling, whatever, you're facing your opponent, right? So to get behind someone is actually pretty difficult. So if you can find ways to strangle somebody while you're facing them, it makes strangling people even easier. Which that's what I'm kind of like falling in love again with that recently. As you saw in my last fight, I finished with a guillotine, and I've just been doing that a lot because it's very accessible. People shoot, without really good position and things. You get a hold of a neck, and I mean, the fight can be over right there. So I've been doing that a lot. And so it's not necessarily my favorite. I would still say the rear naked choke from the back is my favorite, but lately I've been doing that more often. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we definitely saw that in your last fight. And I think you guys are largely, responsible for the rise of the competition, BJJ, like Polaris and stuff, people really getting into that as a spectator sport, and all of the no-gi grappling. It's just such a watchable, offensive style. It's really exciting, whereas Jiu-Jitsu traditionally it's fun to be taking part, but can look a little boring from the sidelines.
I would agree with that. There's definitely a lot of competitions in the past. Let's put it to you this way. I started grappling, I would say somewhere around like year 1 or year 2. I started going to the world championships in the gi. I also would go occasionally to the no-gi world championships. Eventually, once I figured out that no-gi was like my thing, I would go to no-gi more often. Gi. But I went like pretty much every year to the gi world championships. And even being there as a newer person, even being there then, it was tough to watch most of the matches. It was hard, and they were better than me. And I had something to learn from watching those matches. And I'm involved in the sport, and it was hard. I can't imagine what it was like for anybody that came there that didn't know anything about the sport. It was tough. I think that there's just a little bit more to be said for the professional nature of how things are being done now for entertainment value that drives up the ability for people to get paid in all aspects, the people putting on the event, the people competing in the event, getting paid, maybe not be the right word for the spectator, but the spectator being getting something out of it more so than previous. Before, it was amateur level competition. Let's face it, people competed just to find out who's the best. Nobody cared about it. They just wanted to win, which is cool when you're an amateur. That it really doesn't matter. But once you're a professional and you're entertaining people, it matters how exciting you are, and that's a part of your appeal. There's been a lot of really great fighters that have fought in the UFC and many different organizations that have kind of fallen off, and people are like, oh man, they did really, really well. They beat a lot of people, but nobody really wants to see them fight because it was just kind of a very boring style. And it happens even more so in jiu-jitsu, because obviously nobody gets punched in the face. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was kind of a revolution that happened. I would say somewhere around 6-7 years into my training. I do believe I was a part of it. I don't know if I was the driving force, but I definitely believe that I was a critical element to the revolution of national scene for grappling, where people could watch and be entertained. And I think it's being carried on. I always tell like kind of my students when they go to compete, and it's not even whether they're competing professional or amateur. What would always kind of go on in my head whenever I competed was, okay, yes, I want to win, of course. I think everybody will play to say that you don't want to win. But in addition to that, when I show someone a videotape of me competing, I don't want them to be like, what was that? Like, like I don't want them to watch it and just be like, I don't understand. That dude just had his legs wrapped around you the whole time and you just held him down. And that's jiu-jitsu. Like, I want them to look at what I'm doing and be like, whoa, that's jiu-jitsu. Not, okay, cool, man. I be an impression every time somebody watches something that I do. And does that suit? Not necessarily, but to a degree there. Like, it's definitely right next to it as far as what my goals are when I go out to compete. So it's been really exciting to see the sport grow. It's a shame that I'm not competing as much in grappling anymore and that I had to move to MMA, but I mean, I'm 27 years old. At some point, or it was going to start to become too late to be able to focus on MMA and get these fights in and, have a run at being maybe one of the best in the world one day. I only have so much time in my life, so.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think all of these modified rule sets and the submission only and stuff like that is making it a lot more accessible for people, and having, the Polaris joined up with, we've had it in this country over the same weekend as Cage Warriors and the UFC. So it's kind of bringing people from the world over to Jiu-Jitsu as well. And it's a lot of fun. So I would encourage anyone to go and see any of those if they come to your hometown there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool how there's just so many different places that are putting it on now, different countries, different venues, different organizations. I think that's so good for the sport. It's such a shame, I don't want to name any names, but it's such a shame that like some of these organizations, when I go and compete, are like, oh, well, does UFC run it or does Flow? Well, oh, okay, well, we're not going to, you can't do that then. Or, I don't know. I don't think that they realize that the pie that is MMA or whatever it's so small compared to other sports.
Yeah.
Right now is not dividing and it's not dividing up. Oh, where's my piece? Where's my piece? No, it's let's grow this sport. That's the important part right now. And the competition between these different leagues and things, it's good because each league tries to get better than the next. That's fine. I like that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that any of them are seeking exclusivity over athletes seems strange to me, because it's just like, if let's say, for instance, I compete in Polaris, which I've done many times.
Yeah.
And then, Metamoris at the time, I was competing in as well. And they wanted to try to make me an exclusive athlete under them. And I'm just like, guys, it just doesn't make sense for either of you.
Yeah.
Even if you could pay me whatever it would take to get me to do that, it's just not smart for you either. Like, you want to take me to the lineup to be able to compete against all these other guys, and now I can only compete for your organization. You're basically causing a backup, where guys, the matches everybody wants to see, they can't see them because, oh, so-and-so's with that organization. So now we got to make contract negotiations. It's ridiculous. Guys, let's grow the sport. Let's make people excited about it. That should be our number one priority. If I go compete in Polaris, they have an audience. I go to compete in Metamoris, they had an audience. Now those audiences cross over, following me as an athlete.
Yeah.
It seems so silly to me, this mentality of, oh, well, we want to be able to do everything with it. We're putting everything into you, so you can't go over there. It's just like, it seems like a schoolyard, like, it's my truck kind of like fight. It's so silly. I don't know. It's not like we're just not on the level of other sports to be able to do that yet, where we say like, all right, we want one organ. I don't know, man. I don't think that's good. I don't think monopolies in this sport are a good thing.
Yeah. And also the bigger star you become competing on lots of different promotions, then when you compete for them again, you're a bigger name, you know? Every time you win a competition, you're growing your stock value.
Sure. And that transfers over to wherever I'm going to compete against next. It just seems, you know, because Polaris has a completely different audience, or I'm sure there's some crossover, but it's a different audience than another event, especially because it's in a different country, you know? So, I mean, everybody should be excited that people are doing different events and all these different things. I don't know. I'm glad that kind of, I think in the jiu-jitsu world, at least, that's kind of died down a little bit. I think most of the time nobody's trying to make anybody exclusive anymore. There was a little bit, I think Berkut was doing that a little bit, making people exclusive, but I don't think people are, I don't know if they're doing events anymore. I'm not sure, but yeah, I just like a more freer, open market so people can just enjoy watching grappling, you know, and grow the sport. And then, you know, one day when the sport is huge and everybody's entertained and they want to, okay, all right, then let's fight over different athletes and exclusivity and stuff. Fine, you know, if you need to. I still think even then, like, screw it, you should have tons of organizations and let everybody fight everywhere. But because I wish that's how MMA was, to be perfectly honest. Then there could be crossover of athletes, and there wouldn't be all these, you know, like people have to wait. I don't want to use examples, but you know, people have to wait years sometimes to get out of contract so they can fight other guys and other organizations. I don't know. Seems silly to me.
Well, yeah, Ben Askren's only just got into the UFC, obviously, after years of...
He's making a bang out of it, though. It's great. It's really cool to see it. He's doing a good job talking himself up and stuff.
Yeah, he was ruffling a few feathers when he was in London this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really get to see anything, but I heard, you know, little riff-raff here and there about, you know, him causing a fuss, but...
He got absolutely roasted at the fan Q&A just before the ceremonial weigh-ins, but he handled it like a pro.
English and European fans is just like a different world, man. Like whenever I had gone to compete in Polaris, it's just a totally different audience. Like most of the time when I compete in the US or in Asia or anything, like it's very like everybody's very quiet. Like you go to like Polaris and like everybody's like drunk and screaming shit, and I love it. It's just so much more lively. Like it's a very fun environment. I really enjoy competing out in Europe for sure.
It definitely seemed like a few of the fans asking questions by that point. So going back to your MMA career, you're obviously 3-0. Your first win came from ground and pound, which must have surprised a few people.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? I just missed that last part.
I was saying that your first win as an MMA pro was from ground and pound, which probably wasn't what people expected to see from you.
I was actually, it's funny, I just watched an old interview that John did about that first fight the other day. And what he said kind of resonated with me. It made sense. Because, you know, sometimes when you're in the midst of everything and you're fighting, you don't think about it. But yeah, a lot of what I did in that fight had little to do with my previous skills going into it, right? Like I kind of utilized skills in that first fight that I had only recently learned how to do. You know, you said I ended with a TKO. I mean, hitting people on the ground is very different than just grappling people, you know? So to be able to end in a TKO, throwing punches, elbows, and things like that, and actually damaging somebody on the ground is a completely different skill. So for me to have used that in my first fight, as well as a lot of strikes in the standing position, like I was pretty happy about that. I was definitely happy about my first fight. I would say my best fights so far, first and third fight. Third fight I was most impressed with, but for other reasons. But yeah, I use a lot of skills that I had only recently just been practicing. But I mean, hell, if I'm doing it every single day, I mean, it's what I'm used to. So
yeah, and you seem to be as you would if you keep winning, you're kind of going up in quality of opponent this time, or sorry, every time you fight. This time you're fighting Anthony England, who's 8-5.
Yeah.
What do you know about him, and how do you see that fight going?
Yeah, I think, like you just said, I think this one in particular is a big jump in level of opponent, because my previous opponents, of course, anybody can knock anybody out, but my previous opponents, as far as I know, hadn't had any like straight up KOs, like a strike that just put somebody out. And Anthony has done that a number of different times in his fights in MMA. I also believe he has a kickboxing background. I haven't watched any of his kickboxing fights, but he clearly has an ability to put people completely unconscious just with a single punch or kick. So to me, just that alone is a big step up in terms of opponent, because the previous opponents I had, they TKO'd people, submitted people, but nobody like just knocked somebody out with a head kick or anything. It was crazy. It was kind of surreal because on my last fight card, Anthony was the opening fight on the card. So we're all warming up in the back, and the first fight kicks off, whatever. I'm warming up, I'm moving around, whatever, stretching. Nothing crazy, because I was probably like the 8th fight on the card or something, 6th, who knows, I don't remember. But I wasn't like ready to fight or anything. And all of a sudden, like very quickly after I noticed that the fight card started, I hear like loud cheering and like commotion. And I'm like, like the fight just started. What happened? So I look up and the dude just gets head kicked. Like Anthony head kicks the guy like into the next week, and he's just unconscious on the floor. I'm like, damn, I was like, wouldn't want to fight that guy. And then sure enough, next fight, I got to fight that guy. So, and he actually took 2 fights in between that fight and now, which is pretty impressive because it was a pretty short period of time. So he's going to have 3 fights in a period of about, let's see, I fought in November, I think. So, in like a period of like 3-4 months, he's going to have 3. That's pretty impressive. That's tough. Like not a lot of organizations will even let you do that. So I'm excited. It's a big level change in opponent. I still want to test myself in the standing position a little bit. But I definitely think for this fight, we're going to start, moving more towards like Garry Tonon's game, like I'm going to try to dominate, I think, a little bit more this fight than I have in previous fights. Previous fights, I've really been trying to practice on the skills that I've been learning. I still want to do that to a degree, but I just have a feeling this fight that I want to eliminate that danger of getting KO'd, and I just want to do what it takes to put this guy away, so because I view him as a very dangerous opponent. Yeah,
that's awesome. What was it like moving over to MMA for the first time? Was it terrifying because you've got such a big name? There's going to be a lot of eyes on you. You don't get the opportunity that most people get to kind of build themselves through the ranks slowly. People are going to expect a lot of you straight away. Was there a lot of pressure?
The first fight it was terrifying because, like you just said, that it's brand new. You don't know what you're doing, and I had achieved excellence in some other area. So because I did that, I bring a big following. People are obviously going to be watching. It's a big organization. I'm telling everybody I'm fighting this, that, and the other thing, and they have the One Championship app. Now they're even televising it, but back then they didn't. But they had the One Championship app. Everybody could watch. It wasn't hard for anybody to see. So there was a lot of eyes, whether it be in public, the people that actually had tickets or the people that are watching online. It was definitely adds a little bit of extra. And to me, it's like all motivation. Like, don't get me wrong, terrified. Like even this fight, scared out of my mind. Like I don't want to get head kicked and knocked out. I really don't, but there's like this degree of, it's almost like those good thing because it makes me want to train harder. It makes me want to prepare more. It makes me want to be as ready as I could possibly be for these fights. Like if imagine if I knew that like nobody was really watching, and like almost like a training session, like when I'm sparring, like when nobody's watching and it's just John, and I'm sparring, like, I don't care. Like, whatever, you know, if I lose a round or, you know, get hit, it's not a big deal. Like, whatever, it's training, it's sparring, who cares? You know, but now, like, I know, like I said, I mean, we have this following. I know there's people watching. I know people expect a lot out of me. Like, all those things, in addition to the fact that I don't want to get knocked out just for me. Like, I just don't want to take the brain damage. That would be nice. In addition to that, it just drives me to really prepare hard for this stuff, like to really make sure I'm ready. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Yes, it's scary, but at the same time, like, because it's scary, it makes me a better fighter. If it wasn't as scary, I don't know if I would put as much into it as I have been putting into it, if that makes any sense. I can't say for sure because I didn't experience it, but you're right. You know, I didn't have an amateur career where I was fighting at some no-name show in, you know, some random town that nobody was going to watch, either in person or online. I started right with a pretty big name show where there's millions of people watching. So
you've also said about getting a title shot maybe within the next 6 fights. I think it could be sooner than that. I reckon.
Oh, that's not. I'm sorry. Let me correct myself if I said it quite like that. What I meant was within 6 fights, like, period, not within the next 6 fights.
Right.
I meant like 6 total fights. I believe that somewhere along 6, 7 fights total, I think they're going to give me a shot. Like, I can't imagine fighting too much longer than that before they're like, all right, well, let's see what this guy can do. You know, because even this opponent, like you said, is a big jump up in ability. I think, like, after this and maybe 1 or 2 more guys, like, they're going to have to give me the title holder, I think, at a certain point. Last I heard, though, I thought Martin Wynn, which I think is the title holder currently, I thought he was hurt, but I think he'll be healthy by the time I would fight him for a title.
So are we thinking title shot by the end of the year, all being well?
Maybe. I mean, we'll see. It's up to them, really. Again, like, at this point, I'm feeling really good. I'm much more prepared. I still am very inexperienced in many ways. We're only at a little over a year of my training. But I think when they offer it to me, I don't think I'm going to say no. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Even if it was next fight, I think it's likely that I would be like, let's do this. Why not?
If you're feeling good and you're up to the opponent.
And again, though, my opinion's coming from the winning side of things. Maybe if after this next fight, you know, things don't go as well, I'm not thinking that way. I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah, you don't want to look past anyone. I understand that.
Sure.
So the fight is on the 31st of March in Tokyo. We've got MMA UK's Lewis Smith, who's going to be there in person doing the post-fight interview. So look out for him. Yeah, it's awesome to have one of us there representing. It's obviously a huge promotion that we're all really fond of here, and especially one of the questions that's just come in is about the rule set, which is slightly different in one. Peter Knox wants to know, if you could change one rule in MMA, what would you change?
A rule change. Interesting. Now, that it's tough to answer that question just because I fight under a different rule set than some other MMA organizations.
Yeah.
But let me think. If I could, in general, let's imagine that all rule sets were relatively equal, which they kind of are. I would say that the main difference between one and other organizations is the rounds are not scored as rounds. The whole fight's scored, which not a lot of people know. That's interesting. Which I kind of agree with. I like that. You know, I kind of like that idea. And then the other thing that's different about one is you're allowed to knee a downed opponent, where I don't think you can do that in most other MMA organizations.
No,
can't kick them anymore, but you can knee them. But anyway, my main thing, I think I would change the. It's hard to say. For me personally, selfishly, I would change the round length. I would make the round, if there was rounds at all, if I decided there was going to be rounds, I think I would make them like 10 minutes, selfishly. And the reason selfishly I would do that would be simply because that favors grappling more.
Yeah.
To have a longer round. It's hard to be like an explosive striker for that long of a period of time. Also, like imagine, let's say I'm trying to get some grappling going, right? Let's say I get to somebody's back. That takes some time, usually, unless like something crazy happens. So maybe I'm 4 minutes in, I'm on somebody's back digging for a rear naked. Now 5 minutes hits, boop, I got to get off his back. We start over, right?
Yeah.
Like that seems crazy to me. You know, I'd love to just be able to keep going. I think it favors the grappler. Maybe the only other thing might be the gloves, taking the gloves away. Because I don't think it would be as entertaining for that's the other thing about the rounds is I don't think the long round would be as entertaining for people. But I think with that and taking the gloves away, it may or may not be more entertaining. But the issue with the gloves is like because we have gloves and hand wraps and all those things, people can hit way harder, which is a little unrealistic in a real fight. You can continue to hit somebody. Whereas if you watch some of these old bare knuckle boxing fights and stuff like that, like guys hit each other hard for the beginning couple minutes. And then they go, oh yeah, hitting people hurts. My hands are broken.
Yeah.
Slapping and stuff like that. And then again, grappling becomes more of a role because you can only accidentally hit somebody's skull so many times before your wrist breaks, your hand breaks, or something like that. And now again, grappling takes hold. Now those two rule changes are purely selfish. I don't think it would be better for the sport of MMA if those rule changes took place. That's a selfish. Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, I asked specifically to be in like a really quiet spot, so I agree. No problem. I got you. Got you. Sorry about that. I'm being yelled at because I'm talking really loudly in this restaurant. Hopefully you can still hear me at a lower volume. But I don't think it would be better for the sport. I just think selfishly it would be better for me.
What about in terms of getting submissions on? Because I find it in MMA gloves a lot harder to like get my glove under somebody's neck, or are you just at the level where you can do that in your sleep?
Yeah, it's just, you know, I just keep training like that. I train with gloves on every single day. I never take them off. Well, obviously take them off after training, but I never take them off. I never take them off for training anymore because it's my main focus. There's just no reason to. So I think a lot of those issues come from like people just not doing it enough. And sure, I've developed strategies over time, but it's only come from the fact that I train with the gloves every day, so it's normal to me.
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting. So we did get a few questions sent in. Somebody who trains jiu-jitsu a few times a week, who's constantly getting injured, and wanted to know your advice on why that might be, or what they could do to avoid injuries, or what you do to avoid injuries. They didn't tell me the same one or different ones, but
yeah. Well, everybody's a little different, so it's hard to answer that question perfectly. But I would say that there's two main reasons for many injuries. The first, I would say I usually like to pin things on myself. So the first, I'd like to blame the person that's getting injured. I know that's the victim blaming mentality, I suppose, but that I always like to try to point. I always think it's a healthy thing to point the finger at yourself first, because when you point the finger at yourself first, at the very least, you can change everything that you could change. It's often very difficult to change things about other people because you don't get to make those decisions. So for me, the first thing I would think about is, well, how am I training? Am I training balls to the wall? Am I training 100%, 150% every day? Am I trying to kill everybody I'm training with? Like maybe the intensity of which I'm training is just way too high. And I'm doing spastic things that make me more susceptible to injury. Because that's a big part of what I have to do. In addition to that, sometimes just ill preparedness for training. Like nowadays, I would by no means call age 27 old, which is what I am. But I definitely, as I've gotten older, I have to do a lot more of a warm up. And so that would be the second thing that I would take responsibility for myself. Right. Now, having said those two things, if you truly believe that those two things are relatively under control, It could be the environment of which you're training in. Some gym atmospheres are not equal to other gym atmospheres, and coaches or students or whatever the case, whoever is really responsible, usually it's trickles down from coach to students, but whoever's responsible for that atmosphere of that gym may or may not be doing a great job of teaching their students the right kind of culture of training where, hey guys, like, yeah, we're training hard, but we're trying to get better. We're not trying to, when you're doing things to people, you use intensity not to simulate a real situation, not to hurt the opponent. Your objective is not to hurt your training partners. Your objective is to put your training partners into positions where they could get broken or could get strength, these sort of things. You're not trying to, hurt. If you're hurting people, you're training constantly. It's usually like, that's an issue. Everybody doesn't benefit from that. If I hurt my training partners, especially my favorite ones, I don't get to train with them the next day because they're injured. They have to sit on the sidelines. So it doesn't help anybody. And I think a lot of people don't do a good job building gym culture that leads to productivity as opposed to intensity. And it's a balance. It's definitely a delicate balance, but that could also be the issue. I don't know. It's hard to say without really knowing more information, but that's the best I could do.
Yeah, they didn't tell me what injuries it was, so hopefully that answered their question. What are your thoughts on CBD oil, using that for recovery and for if you've been sparring at night to help with sleep and stuff?
Yeah, I will say this. Usually I like to research the supplementation that I take heavily before I really start taking things. I haven't really done a crazy amount of research on CBD, but I will say that for this fight camp, I have been using it.
Yeah.
I will say that I've been using it in addition to some other things as well, fish oils, turmeric, other things to try to keep inflammation down. So I can't say exactly what it is, but I will say this fight camp in particular, I have some injury issues. I'm not going to say specifically what, but I have some injury issues that haven't been as bad this fight camp, and CBD has been an element that I've been taking consistently. One thing I will say about it is, regardless of what the research is, I think many people look at it as like some sort of magic bullet situation. And I don't think that that's really, it's not magic, guys. Like, if you're going to take it, it's probably something you got to take consistently, similar to like fish oil or turmeric or something every day. And maybe it makes an impact, but it's like a marginal impact that you're going to notice over time. I don't think it's something like, I blow my back out and I'm going to take some CBD and like all of a sudden, like, yeah, exactly. Like I can move my back again. I don't think so. But I'm not trying to talk about it negatively. It very well could have helped me this training. I'm taking it right now. So.
And what about the turmeric? How do you take that? Do you take capsules or you put it in your food, or how do you take that?
Yeah, capsules. I will say this. When I first tried turmeric, I tried to like take more than recommended, which was, I was taking like 3 of them a day. Turmeric leads to the most disgusting and most frequent farts I've ever experienced. So I was just like, nope, this is out of the picture. So what I did is I started taking it at night before bed, and I didn't experience that anymore. I didn't take 3 capsules. I just take 1 at night before bed. So it's in pill form, and it's not nearly as bad.
Every day, that's not ideal, is it?
No, definitely not. Especially in the close contact grappling world, it's not exactly a good thing.
That's another way to make sure your training partners don't come back.
That's right.
Amazing. I'm just going to have a quick check and see if there were any more. There were actually some comments from Murdad, our mutual friend.
Oh, there we go.
I'll leave you to read those on Instagram later.
Nice.
I think we've covered them.
All right. Cool.
Amazing. Well, just want to wish you the best of luck against Anthony England on the 31st of March in Tokyo. As I said, Luke Smith will be there representing MMA UK. He'll be ready to do a post-fight interview afterwards. And I just really, really appreciate you taking the time. I do jiu-jitsu myself, and it's brilliant getting to talk to you. It's been amazing.
Thank you. happy to do it anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and good luck with the fight.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.